Okay, so what is remote viewing? It's seeing things as they are, maybe, but not from where you're at, right here with your physical eyes. It's seeing with your extrasensory eyes, or hearing with your extrasensory ears, or any of the other extrasensory senses. It's been used in the military. CIA studied it, funded it. So let's just look at a basic history of remote viewing. And so in the early 20th century, a Russian defector came to the United States with evidence alluding to that the Russian government had a top secret team of psychics and they were gearing up for psychic warfare. So the United States thought, if the Russians have psychic spies, we should have psychic spies too. So the CIA then started to fund programs that looked into remote viewing, which is seeing things like, for example, looking into files, knowing where the enemy has weapons hidden, and other ways of using remote viewing. So Stanford Research Institute was actually put on task with the experts from various backgrounds that were physicists, they were paranormal psychologists, people like Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, Ingo Swann. Those are names that are really well known in the remote viewing community. They kind of plowed the way for modern use, and it's not something that's new. It's something that's been used since the beginning of time, as every single person is actually born psychic, but the world doesn't allow that part of the person to really be developed. Our educational systems don't have psychic classes. The occult is not studied openly or widely, and in fact, it's discouraged mostly by religions, and society tends to frown on metaphysical sciences or think of it as hokey. But metaphysical science is also just a science that's beyond physical proof. So just because it doesn't have proof yet doesn't mean that it's not actual science. There's a lot of science that went into this. In fact, billions of dollars was spent on studying remote viewing. And so some of my credentials and background studies, I have an NLP certificate from Dr. Boyd Johnson, and we tapped into a little bit of remote viewing in some of my studies for my certificate in neurolinguistic programming. But remote viewing is something that I've done naturally my whole life. So let's talk a little bit about that. I can tell you a few things that I've actually done to use remote viewing in my own life. And some of them are really simple and strange things that I've done that have helped me get things that I need, or actually see things that are in the future. We'll get more into the future here about what types of remote viewing there are, and the types that I've developed myself. So first of all, let's talk about controlled remote viewing. You've heard of it as CRV. There's several different forms of controlled remote viewing. It's designed by different experts, but it's similar in that they all access individual uses of intuition. And so your intuition is something that can be developed. Some people are born with natural gifts, and the levels at which people use intuition can vary. Some people, like for example, a mother, when she's in one room doing a task and she has this sudden feeling to go check in another room and she finds her child destroying the room. That's a mother's intuition. But everybody has that ability. Different systems of religious belief call it different things. Some people say it's listening to the spirit. But the intuition is that psychic part of the human that we are all born with. A lot of people just haven't given themselves permission to use that part of their psyche or their brain. But the first rule of remote viewing is that you need to give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to actually use the abilities that you were born with. And some of you will be very naturally gifted at doing it, and some of you will, it'll take some time to develop that gift. Just like some people are gifted with music right out the bat. They can sing from childhood. Other people have to have training for years before they can do the same thing that natural singer could do. So you all have the capacity to use remote viewing in some way in your life, whether that be for your career or for a little thing that's really important, or if you lost your keys and you want to know where they're at. You can close your eyes and suddenly you know where your keys are at. So we're going to talk first about the CRV, obviously. It's the use of intuition. where we're supposed to obtain information about a target. And a target is the thing you're looking for. It's going to be either a place you're looking for, a thing you're looking for, a person, maybe information you're looking for, an activity. And there, if you ever want to look up Russell Targ, he's given a lot of really good TED Talks and among other interviews where he can go into detail about it a little bit more, but what they did with it in the CIA and the types of information that they found. Really, really interesting studies. Okay, so basically, controlled remote viewing is tapping into the extrasensory abilities. And like, there's more than just your regular senses. There's the physical senses, and then you have clairvoyance, which is the ability to have clear seeing. Clairaudience is the ability to have clear hearing. Clairgustance is clear tasting. Clairalience is clear smelling. Clairsentience is clear feeling, and claircognizance is clear knowing. So these are the extrasensory senses that everyone can tap into if they just quiet the mind and actually listen. So one of the other things that's important to do, first of all, in remote viewing is first give yourself permission to tap that part of yourself, the part of you that's connected to everything, and to also allow yourself to use whatever sense is good for you. Everybody's different. I'm actually able to use all of my clairsenses because I've developed them. And for example, say someone is doing a remote viewing and they smell something. They seem to smell barbecue, for example, and I seem to smell barbecue. Okay, then that means they're using their clairalient senses, which is a clear smelling that's beyond the physical senses, and maybe they find out their target that there was a barbecue going on. So you may receive sounds of children laughing and find out that the target was a preschool, or you may taste bubble gum and then realize that you're in high school or something. So whatever your senses can come, the cues and the hints can come in different ways. So controlled remote viewing is, first of all, they had a method that was created to remote view in a setting where it was the same every time. They get a person relaxed, they bring them into state, and there's a methodical way about reaching that state and recording the information received while in the state. Then there's extended remote viewing, which is ERV. In this method, extreme care is taken to find a comfortable setting. Usually they'll take a person and lay them on a bed or a recliner or some place where they can get to what's called a hypnagogic state, which is right before you fall to sleep. And then the opposite of that would be the hypnopompic, is when you're waking up. That state between asleep and awake. There's like a ramp going into and a ramp going out of. So when you're going into sleep, that's the hypnagogic state. So if you could reach that state, then you're ready to receive more from your extrasensory senses, because you're not relying then on your physical body. It's a form of disassociating. If there's a moment from when you're awake to before you go to sleep, that's the moment that astral projectors grab onto. And if you can maintain that state and prolong that state, it's like you're kind of out of body. It's the in-between, or going from one part of the brain to another part of the brain. There's the ability to see with your eyes in other places, or hear with your ears things going on in other places, rather than just where your physical body is lying. So getting down into the hypnagogic state is very important in an extended remote viewing, because they're going to extend that period of consciousness to receive information. So in those particular types of sessions, there's usually an interviewer that sits with the person, because when you're in a hypnagogic state, you're not going to be writing, you're not going to be painting. Your body is almost hypnotic or asleep. Your body is down, but your state, your mind, and your senses are active. So when you're using extended remote viewing, it usually takes a couple of people. So in that case, you would be lying down, getting into the state, and then that person or the interviewer prompts you into giving or receiving information. So you might be lying in the chair and say, "I see a lake." And then the interviewer encourages you, "Is there anything else around you?" "Yes, there's trees." And then the interviewer might say, what kind of trees? So they can pull more information out, and it maintains the state of the person. So as long as the body is still and the mind is relaxed and open to information, the ability to continue to give that information orally or using hand gestures or whatever might still be there. So, but generally you're not going to be writing or breaking your state by modeling things and actively thinking. So that brings us to another kind of remote viewing. Or let's talk first about inducing those states. Okay, so there's 4 types of brain waves that we operate on generally. And there's the beta, the alpha, the delta, the theta. The beta waves are produced when we engage in mental activity. So for example, beta waves are when you're awake, you're cooking lunch, you're actively doing things around the house that require concentration. You're picking things up and you're filing things, or you're doing a math problem, or having a conversation with somebody. That's generally when you're at beta. So then alpha waves are produced when we're in a more relaxed state. So alpha waves can come into play when, say, you're sitting around with people you're comfortable with. You're no longer heightened. So when you're around strangers, you're not going to get to that state generally, because there's a comfort level that comes into being around people you know. Or if you're in surroundings that you're comfortable with, then it's easier to reach that alpha state, which is a slightly more relaxed state. Easier to tell the truth in that state, easier to have an open mind. The mind is not as active playing those programs that we've been programmed with since we were born. And we all have that. The mind is a tool. And, there's something inside of the body, or you say there's a ghost in the machine that's actually driving the mind. So the mind is a tool. And when you bypass that mind, then you can use the extrasensory senses, which is part of your subtle body, which is, more connected to everything else around. So you've got your alpha waves and your beta waves. And then the theta waves occur during daydreaming. That's when things around you kind of time out. And I used to get in trouble for daydreaming in school all the time. I can't tell you how many times I got written up and had detention for daydreaming. But that's okay, because I just did more daydreaming and I did plenty of drawing. And some really cool artwork came out of those detention classes. But the theta waves that you, this is what is ideal. You want that daydreaming state. That is the most ideal for remote viewing, controlled, whatever. Not so much the extended remote viewing is for people who get into the hypnagogic state where they're almost asleep, but just barely awake. But in theta, you're still kind of conscious of things going on around you, but you're also more honed in on something else. So, that could explain why you're zoned into your project. You're thinking about what you're designing in your head, and there might be someone tugging at your leg, one of your kids, and you don't really see them or hear them because you're in that theta state. So theta state can be achieved sitting in a chair. You could be standing on the subway. You could literally be driving to work and reach theta, where you put your body on autopilot. You could literally be driving a car or doing something that you do every day that doesn't require thinking, and you can put your body on lifting weights, running, exercise, those types of things. Your body could be getting those good endorphins from working out, and you can still be in theta. So theta can be achieved while you're doing anything. Sorry, there's someone at my door. How's it going? Okay. Anyway, so theta state's what we're looking for remote viewing. So think about how you get there. How do you get into that daydream state? How do you get into that autopilot, my mind is somewhere else state, where you don't even remember getting home? And I know we've all done that. We've driven home or driven to work, and we're like, whoa, how did I get to work so fast? You don't even remember the drive, but you remember having this weird dialogue in your mind, or image of you on the beach somewhere in Hawaii. So theta is what we're looking for. And then there's also delta waves. Delta waves are what you have when you're sleeping, and those are not ideal for remote viewing. You want to have a certain amount of awakeness in your active senses so that you can actually remember what you're thinking and see actively what you're thinking and receiving. Okay, so the theta brain waves are the best for CRV, ARV, GRV due to increased creative ability. So, and think about that too. When you're using your imagination, children don't question their imagination. Imagination is something that just comes to a child naturally. And as adults, it seems sometimes people tend to lose a little bit of that creativity or that child, that inner child. And so it's really important to also, first, you're giving yourself permission to get to know your inner child and to be who you are naturally. And who you are naturally is minus the programs, minus the things that you think all the time that the world has put there. Your your inner child is giving you permission to be connected to truth, and truth receives information. So if you have that state of I'm receiving information and I give myself permission to know the truth, then you begin to see things. Things will come to you. As you know, there's also a thing called law of attraction, and in remote viewing, you can combine law of attraction with remote viewing to find the information that you want. And what's interesting too is Russell Targ in his work, in all the psychics that they work with, there's a really interesting story he told, which I won't tell here. You can just go see his interviews. Okay. Oh, another important thing, breathing. When you are getting into that theta state, breathing is really important, and you're going to get there faster if you're taking slow breaths in, holding for a second, slow breaths out. I could say four count. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Make sure it goes down to your belly. Belly breathing, like the kind that you achieve when you're meditating. The same state you get when you're daydreaming is the same state you get when you're meditating, and that boils down to your breathing. So if you're breathing shallow, you're cutting off oxygen to your brain and your organs that obviously need to function. So to receive better impressions and for your senses to be more acute, it's better to breathe properly. Also, interestingly, caffeine actually increases psychic abilities for some people. Caffeine. Not for everybody. For some people, it makes the body too nervous, but I wouldn't recommend trying to remote view on illegal substances. It's not something, remote viewing is not something that you use drugs to achieve. It's something that you have a natural ability born in you to achieve. Your spirit can do it. Your soul can do it. Your subtle body can do it. Okay, so also there's a thing called, daydreams. Someone in a hypnagogic state or a hypnopompic state might hear sounds that are not there, might have visual hallucinations or smells or tastes, or feel immediately present, like danger or looming terror. Any of those things can happen during a remote viewing session. So go into it with the state that you're ready to receive information as an observer, because there are times that you can get into a remote viewing situation where you see something horrific that you don't really want to see. And so, be prepared for that. The astral planes are interesting places. Sometimes it's the place of illusions. So you'll be dealing with illusions. And when you're looking at remote viewing, it's not necessarily seeing a clear picture. It's like looking at something through the fog, or seeing it in the water, and the water's moving. So you're seeing, a warped image of something that's real. So you'll see bits and pieces. Sometimes you'll get a lot of details, but there's going to be some things that are fuzzy. So keep in mind, remote viewing is not always specific in picture or clear. Sometimes there's moments of actual clarity where you see something like immediately clear. Other times, it's really fuzzy. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the methods that, generic remote viewing is something that I didn't mention. So generic remote viewing is the kind I prefer to use. I don't like the controlled so much because I don't always need to go into a controlled environment. I know a lot of the people who worked for the CIA or who did a lot of research with the Russell Targ, they would sit in a dark room for hours to get into state, and it would be shielded so that all the EMFs would, nothing would be bothering their minds. If you're really sensitive to electromagnetic chaos, I would recommend getting some kind of chaos eliminator, especially if you're going to remote view, because if you're not, and you're really sensitive to EMPs or electro chaos, it can kind of interfere with receiving information. So, things you can wear for that would be shungite. It's a meteorite. You can find it online. It's not really cheap. It's not real expensive. It's kind of moderately priced, but you can probably get a shungite pendulum or pendant for maybe $30. Organite, whatever you use to eliminate electromagnetic chaos would help. A lot of people do really well going out into nature and having their moments in a place where they can be so relaxed. So find a place that's comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be in a bed or a dark room like these experimenters or researchers did. Just find a place that's comfortable for you. I can do it with my kids in the room, and my husband's like, how can you concentrate? I'm like, I just can disassociate from the world around me and absolutely zone in. And as an artist, you can see in my artwork, artists use remote viewing, especially if they're creating art that's new, like from their imagination. Otherwise, there's things that people could be looking at, like I might be drawing this mug, but that's actual viewing, you know, using the eye. But when you're drawing from the mind's eye and you're using your imagination, you're remote viewing, you might be looking to the future, which leads me to an example. When I was about 33, I wrote a series of novels, and back in about 2011. And there was a character that I kept drawing, and I was in a marriage that I wasn't really happy in, and you know, just so I used my books for escape. And it was an action adventure kind of book, and it had some romantic elements to it, you know, my escape, what I wanted. And so I disassociated and went into writing mode and saw these amazing things, and the things that I was seeing, I felt like, well, this could be mine. So I wrote it as if it was, and you know, I invented this character. I saw this character of this man that was tall. He had dark hair. He looked like a different race from me, you know, like from the main character. Just bizarre, from a different place. And that he wore specific clothing. And little did I know that I was actually describing my future husband, the one that would absolutely sweep me off my feet and be the love of my life. And so I'm going to show you some of those pictures so that you can see how I use remote viewing to see my future husband, and certain scenarios even that came to our life were actually in the book. Very detailed, very correct. There were things, situations completely from a place of remote viewing, or you could say just tapping into that psychic cloud, that cloud of information that's out. Because time, it's really important to understand time is not linear. And in remote viewing, time isn't, like if you're looking now at a target somewhere else. They even had one of the CIA experiments where they had them look into a target area and describe the lay of the land. And so the remote viewer wrote the lay of the land, and when they compared it to aerial pictures, it was all exact except for this one big, huge, he said water something water, a body of water here, but that wasn't there. And then later, 10 years after the experiment, they found that in 1933, 70 years before the target time, there had been a water tower there. And so he drew not only what was there in space, but also in time. He drew everything overlapping in time in that remote viewing experience. So you might be in a remote viewing experience or having an out-of-body experience or whatever you want to call it. And you might be in a space that includes all time, a multiverse, as it were, different levels of time. It could be now, and it could be, like, for example, if you live in a home that's been around for 100 or 200 years, you can guarantee that if you have a remote viewing experience in any of those spaces, there may be moments when time overlaps and you can see what was going on in those rooms at another time. And I've known clairsentience and even had clairsentient moments when I've walked into old homes or walked into someone's home. They've been living there a long time, and I immediately felt what had happened in that room prior years and say, hey, did this used to be a printmaking room or something? Yeah, actually it was. How did you know? I just sensed it. So, you know, remote viewing can be used in instance when you walk into a room and know what's been here before. And that would be, you can do clairsentience, you could feel, or you could see things. You might see a spinning wheel or a knitting loom in the corner, and that's obviously out of date, and find that the home used to be, house an old lady for 30 years that was a knitter and worked on a loom. So remote viewing is really interesting. Try sometime walking into an old place and just quieting your mind and being open to what has happened in time and space, in that space. So that's another way that remote viewing has been used. But I wanted to show you these pictures. Okay, these pictures I drew of the character in my book. Let me turn the camera around. Okay, have a good look at this. Yeah, see in this one, there's blood on his forehead coming out of a wound on his forehead. And he has his hair parted here. And on this one, there's, you know, the hairstyle, the kiss, all of the hair. Okay, he's a fighter. He wears he wears a uniform with a hood, some kind of uniform with some kind of an emblem on the front. It looks like it could be armored in some way, an armored maybe uniform, and hoodies. And the character's always wearing hooded things. Okay, so now let's skip to a couple of years after I wrote the book, and I was at a convention actually giving seminars about this book. It was a bestseller, and I sold a lot of copies. So it was a bestseller on Amazon. It was #1 in its genre. And then I met Charles. And as you can see here, the haircut, the hooded figure. And in one of the episodes, now he was a sidekick character or the co-host of a famous or popular YouTube show called Zombie Go Boom, and he was testing this weapon, and it had a saw blade on there, and he was swinging it around, and it came down on his head, and there's that wound and the blood, and all the things that there's an armored shirt with an emblem on it, a uniform of some kind, and the character in the book was always wielding knives and swords, and what better description than my husband right here. So this is one way that remote viewing was used in my own life to see the future. And when I met my husband, I pretty much recognized him, so it was pretty cool. About 5 years ago, I was in a really bad situation, and I was going through turmoil. I lost a business and had become homeless, basically. I didn't have anything but a camper to stay in, and didn't even have utilities. I didn't have running water. So I was in a place where I was just like, well, I have a lot of time on my hands, and I really want to develop my psychic abilities, and I wanted to know where I'd be in 5 years. So I closed my eyes, and I did a method that I developed called the time machine, or the interview, whatever. And I said, show me something that's mine in 5 years. Show me where I'll be. Show me where I'll be. And I opened my mind, and I did what's called auto writing, and this is, you can do this in theta state. If you were in a hypnagogic state, you couldn't do this. So you don't want to get to that point right before you go to sleep. Just get into a daydreaming state and have your pen and your paper in front of you, and just kind of relax and let the image come to mind, and then let the hand just move. So I closed my eyes. My eyes weren't even open when I drew the picture. I had my eyes closed, and I scribbled out. And then I went in, and at the end, finished in a few details, and I was still in the daydream state, watching my hand work. I just was letting it happen. So in an auto writing situation, it's almost like being a medium. It's almost just like letting the information print, and you're trusting it, and you just let the body do it. And so I'll show you the picture that I drew. Okay. This is the picture that I drew. I drew it on December 15th, 2012. Or this is mine. And it looks like a landscape of some kind. You can see I started to sketch what looked like train tracks, but I wasn't sure, and I stopped at about 4 lines because I stopped trusting. Now, here's the important thing about remote viewing is you got to trust it. Trust yourself. Trust your inner child. Your inner child's honest. Children are honest. So when you go into this with a childlike attitude, you can receive impressions that are true because children tell the truth. So you're looking with your child's eye. See, there's buildings over here that look like Quonset huts, maybe a garage of some kind, looks like a deciduous trees, and then some evergreen trees, look like a walnuts, or oaks. Okay, so this was the picture that I drew. And that was in 2012? 16, yeah, so 4 or 5 years later, coming out of a really hard situation, I fell into some luck with some land, and we were able to buy this land. And I bought it sight unseen. Literally, I was like, I just want it. It was such a good price that we grabbed it. And look at this lay. There's train tracks. There's a road here and a crossroad here and a residence here. Some big trees, buildings. Okay, now this is exactly what I saw in my mind, and I was looking at it in different angles. Quonset huts that I was seeing. See these two Quonset huts? Actually are on the back of the property, the backside on the other side of the train tracks. But you can see here, this was the drawing, and I put little, little keys so you could see where they are on the land. This is the bird's eye view, satellite view of the land, and this was my drawing done several years prior to ever seeing the land, to ever even know it existed. And you see these two buildings. There's these two buildings. There's the garage door. There's a garage door. Then you see here there's a road that goes, horizontal. On here there's that road. Now looking in from standing at ground's eye view, you can see the train tracks going off here and then the road going down into there, and of course the road veering off. Now you look here, there it is. If you're standing right there, there's the train tracks and there's the road going in and there's the road you're standing on. Now if you look forward down into the land, there's the road, there's the road, there's the train tracks, there's the train tracks. Okay, there's a bundle of evergreen trees, cedars. All of these are cedars. See, all of these I drew are cedars. Down here, looking further into the land, among all these cedars, one large either oak or walnut, right? There's a large walnut right there on the property, out by itself, just like this one. It's out by itself. And then in the very backside of the property, a huge juniper tree. I call home tree. It's my favorite tree on the whole property. And there it is right there. And just across the way is a building. Now, it's interesting. The way remote viewing works, too, sometimes it's not always clear. Sometimes things get jumbled up. I was sensing Quonsets, but they're actually back here on this side of the property, these two buildings. I drew them here, but knew there was a building here. And so you can see here I placed the building there, same building, there's the same placement here. There's the placement. But I drew the shape of the ones that are actually on the back of the property. Those. So I got two elements in one space. Like I said, it's fuzzy sometimes. Okay, then you look further, and you can see there's another tree back here, and everything that I drew here is literally the land that we ended up living on, and we're just excited because it's a wonderful piece of land. Okay, so another method that I use, that I've used it for. One time, I was really hard up for money, and I needed a really good pair of rugged boots to do some yard work in. I'll tell you the story about how I got these boots. And I used a remote viewing technique I like to call the lighthouse. And during the lighthouse meditation, I get into that theta state, close my eyes, and pretend that I'm a tower with a light that goes round and round like a lighthouse tower, or like the Lord of the Rings, that big eye that sits on the tower and sees everything. Okay, so I'm in the tower and I'm looking, and I want a pair of boots, and I want to pay less than $1 for them, and I know that there happens to be a thrift store very close to our house, a few miles from the house, that has shoes for 50 cents, regardless of what they are. And there's a lot of real wealthy people in certain areas not too far from the thrift store as well. And I knew there would be somebody, because there's a lot of bikers out here, that they would have a nice pair of leather boots in my size that doesn't wear them anymore. So in the RV, I placed the target as someone who has a pair of size 8 leather boots that doesn't want them, they're just in the way. Find that person and go. And literally I scanned, and the light took me to a place in a nearby town. I won't name names because, privacy. But I literally then, at this point, I also use what's called telepathic communication. So telepathy is something I do as well, but that would be a whole nother workshop. And I sent the intention or the telepathic message to the woman who owned these shoes, you know, to, hey, if you don't want them, could you do me a favor and take them to that thrift store for me? And literally the next day the thrift store would be open. I went there and those boots were sitting there. She said they were delivered that morning, and I paid $1 for them. Or less than $1 for them, actually, just like change in my hand. And so you see, remote viewing can be used to find things. And I used it to find a pair of boots in my price range, which happened to be $1, and somebody who didn't want them, somebody who didn't want their junk. You can remote view and find exactly your target. And so those are just a few examples of how I have used remote viewing. Okay, so that can build your faith in me as a remote viewing technician or expert. I use it regularly. I use it in my art, use it in my music. If I want to find something for a good deal, I use it to find good deals. A good deal on a car, I'll know what, you know, where to go, or a good deal on meat prices. I don't know, whatever, anything. You could use it to find land that you want to live on. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, it's a big purchase, so it's something that, you know, looking with your other eyes would really certainly help. Okay, so let me see what material we've got. I think we're going to get to where we're going to take a break, but beforehand, we're going to do an exercise. You'll need your paper, and you'll need a pen or pencil. And for this exercise, we're going to do what's called the envelope target, or a folder target. And simple example, there's a magician that does a show in Eureka Springs by the name of Vince Johari, friend of ours, great performer. And he does a show called Who's the Psychic? And he'll go and he'll have there's be a crowd of people, maybe 30, 40, 50 people, and he'll say, who's the psychic in the crowd? And he has a series of tests that he runs to see who the psychics are. And essentially what he's doing is he's running simple remote viewing tests that can see who's already tapped in. And so there was about 30 people in the crowd when he was doing the show, and I was there with a bunch of strangers. And he says, I've got an envelope here, and inside this envelope is a picture. And what do you see in your mind? Just go. I'll go around the room. Just first thing that comes out of your head. What do you see in it? People were saying all kinds of stuff. Really, you know, a dog, or an ocean, or, you know, all kinds of stuff. And then there was one other woman that spoke before me, and she said, I see a house. And I said, hey, I see a house too. I see a house with a picket fence and a little sun in the sky. So after he got through everybody, there was only 2 of us that said we saw a house. He pulls out of the envelope a picture of a house, just like a stick figure drawing of a house with a sun and a picket fence. So I had every element. She just said a house. No one else saw it. She was, and, you know, he brought us to the front and said, well, what do you guys do? I said, well, I'm a professional psychic. That's what I do. And she was just, she'd had a gift her whole life and knew it. Now, every person in that room could be trained to see what's in the envelope. And we're going to do that today. So everybody that's watching now, you can get your paper ready. So, you know, just scratch paper, this, or notebook, whatever you got laying around. And I'm going to present an envelope. This is your target. Can't see what's in it until after. And so when I show you afterwards what's inside the envelope, that's called closing the feedback loop. So if we're working together and, you know, we're trying to find a target, and say you're doing this for somebody else, they'll say, here's what I want you to find, or here's what I want you to see, and then you go into your state. So in this case, your target is, I want to know what's in this folder. You can get a picture out of it, you know, whatever, a picture in your mind. You might know the content of what's in here, whatever, anything. There's no wrong answer except for the wrong answer. The right answers would be anything that alludes to what's actually in this folder. Okay, so before we go to break, we're going to take a 10-minute break, so you can go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever. And this target will be waiting for you. So in the next 10 minutes, while I take a break or whatever, quiet your mind. No pressure. I'm not going to be watching here or talking while you're doing it, because I want you to be able to reach that state. get into your theta state, get into daydream mode, get relaxed. And as soon as you feel or see an impression or you anything related to what's in this envelope, write it down. Get it on paper. Any idea, just even if it's obscure, even if it just seems like a strange shape that doesn't make sense to you, put it on that paper. We're going to look when we come back from the break to see what's inside this envelope and see if you got anywhere close. So have your image ready. Take a picture of it with your cell phone, and then I'll have you submit it in the next video. Just submit it in the like the conversation, so we can see and examine what your page has on it, and then we can see how close it is to what's in the envelope. So thank you for watching. This was session 1. There's going to be a couple more sessions with activities, and I will see you in about 10-15 minutes. Okay, so this is video 2 of the remote viewing series. In the first video, we talked a little bit about the history of remote viewing, where it came from, how it got funded by the CIA, some of the names known in the program, so you can look them up and see their research as well. And then I showed some examples of my own processes, my own methods, and you know, this is my experience with it. It's something that everybody can do. Give yourself permission. Okay, those are just basic catch-up notes from the last video. So we're going to be revealing the results of this target from the first video, and if you were there, have your results handy and be ready to post them as soon as I give you the cue. My husband was in the other room with the kids, and he also was watching live with his cell phone, so he took the test as well. So we're going to see how close everybody's results were to what I put in the envelope this morning. Charles does not know what is in the envelope. He did not see me set this up. So he was also doing a blind target just like you. And I've already seen his results, and I was actually very impressed. So, you know, don't feel bad if you don't have really great results your first time. You probably have something very, you know, in there. Some people right out, like I said, right off the bat, they hit that target. And Charles did a pretty good job with his. Hey, Charles, I'm ready for you. Okay, so if you drew your picture from the first video, even if you're coming in after the video has been recorded, copy and paste, or like take a picture of your results, your sketches, and paste them into the conversation of this video so everybody can see what you think is in this folder, your target. Okay, well, I'm going to show you what was in here. The target was this music book, The Blue Danube. So I had face up in the envelope when I set it down, this image. You can see any of the elements that are on here. If you drew anything with arrows, anything with numbers, maybe the number 7, star shape of some form. There's a microphone here. The Blue Danube, maybe you heard the song. Maybe you heard the song in your mind. Da 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 da. You've all heard it. Music, you saw music notes, or if you saw lines maybe on a page, or if you saw a book of music, because I think it's just a whole music book with arrows. So any of these elements, if you saw any of these elements. So Charles just came back in with his results, and I'm going to show you what he came up with, and this is what I had on the envelope. So if you had anything close, awesome, go ahead and post your results. Charles was in the living room, and he sketched these 2 objects. A star shape, and it looks like, you know, actually the shape of a book. Lines, it looks almost like the corner of a room maybe, but lines or segmented areas on a page, and a star. Now, when we go back to this music, you can see that he went right to the star in his mind. Is this the first image you drew?
Yeah.
The star was the first image he drew, and it seems the red in the astral planes caught his eye. So red for Charles. Okay, and then look at this. It looks like kind of like maybe some music going across there. See the shapes? And there's even a triangular orange, or rectangular orange shape at the top with arrows in it. There's even a little rectangular shape at the top of his So you see he actually saw quite a few elements in here, and I'm really proud of you for your first attempt at the folder exercise. So go ahead and post the rest of your results. If I don't see them now in the timeline, I'll go back postscript and reply. But everybody else can go back and look through the comments to see later who else submitted what they saw in envelope number 1. Okay, we're going to do another envelope. Giving the clipboard back to Charles and some more paper. All right, one more envelope. This is your target. Get into your state. I'm not going to log off this time. So, some of you did really, really well on the first target. So go ahead and relax, get into your theta state, focus on the envelope. Okay, it's time to close the feedback loop. Bring in your drawings. Charles is sitting over there. See what you got this time. Interesting. Okay. Some interesting shapes there. Sometimes I even like to turn it. Get all angles. Okay. Set these aside. Dun dun dun! The reveal. We have the Mask Maker's Handbook. Let's see. Do we have anything similar from Charles's drawing?
Kind of the stripes there, here.
Oh yeah, I do see that. Is that blinds?
I don't know.
There is, okay.
Oh, in this image it looks like, yeah, maybe blinds, but
There's stripes, a striped background. So there's that. That's the
maybe
front.
something in the book.
Okay, let's see. In the book, it's like, logos. It teaches you how to basically make special effects molds. I got this 20-something years ago and used to make things. I like monsters. Fitting that I would marry the man I did. I know, he's not a monster. Ah! That sounded bad. No, he's was into some macabre art when we met. And, well, there's a lot of graphs. I don't see any tags across the tape, across the front. A lot of monster faces. I figured some people might get a face or an eye. It shows, like materials. Mostly step-by-step photos. But there's a little splash of blood across the top of the page here. I guess it appears on most of the pages, or some of quite a few of the pages. There's this.
Oh.
And so you see he got the splash of blood right here.
Something, yeah.
You see that?
Interesting.
And blood is something that Charles definitely resonates with because he played the executioner on Zombie Go Boom, so when he would chop things.
I saw words here and something here, and I thought, I saw what was the words here, but it was really blurry, so I just drew it as lines.
Again, though, this is twice now that Charles's mind's eye has gone to something red. Or this would be red if it was real blood, but you can tell that it's the splatter of blood going across, because it's a monster book. So, and then there's that splatter, and this is it's the title. It's the title heading to all the pages. So it is a common element in the book. And of course, titles but the stripes on the cover, back cover, are definitely present. This shape I don't know. I think this one, may be irrelevant. And occasionally you'll get an irrelevant shape. Or for all we know, that's step-by-step graphs, and then maybe another picture here. Could be, that could be seen as even,
Well, what I was doing is...
lots of squares.
Initially, whenever I think about what's inside the folder, like think about looking at opening the folder, I usually see an image or whatever, and I draw it, and then I just erase it from my mind, and then I do it again, and then I erase that, and then I do it again, and I erase that. I keep doing it over and over.
So, okay, so in an uncontrolled environment, which is what we're doing, we're doing what's called generic remote viewing, where we're allowing the student or the practitioner to develop their own method. So Charles just explained that, his method is he'll take the first image or impression that he gets and draw it, and then wipe the slate clean, and then receive the next impression. So he's receiving information in layers. There was another gentleman that was really famous. I think it was Pat Price or a couple of other people that had a similar method where they would go through pages. I mean, like pages of information. And then by the time they compiled all the information at the end of several different sketches, after kind of wiping the slate, receiving new information, wiping the slate, they would have a final overall kind of synopsis of what these drawings all mean. Like, for example, maybe if someone who's done this a lot might say, all the elements I put together makes me think it's a manual of some kind of information, or, something to do with monsters, something more concrete. Either way, these are pretty good. His first two, we've never played this game before, but it's really fun. Something you could do with your kids, something you could do with friends. Hide an object in a folder or an envelope and have some sketch paper. Hey man, these are better than those games that you spend $40 a box on and you just need scratch paper and a crayon. Okay, so we've just done the folder exercises. Now we have a couple of more. Two more hidden items, and then we're going to do what's called a future event. That's really interesting. I think I went over it. Let me look at my notes. Earlier when I talked about the different types of remote viewing, I forgot to mention the kind where you're looking into a future event. Usually it's a binary thing, okay? Something like a football game. Like, say you got the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? And the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Dallas Cowboys. And you want to know who's going to win because you're going to go put money on them. All right, now here's the thing. They found in studies, and this is literally, they spent money on figuring this out. So they have results to show that if the remote viewer knows what they're putting their bet on, or knows what they're viewing, knows too much in advance, then they only get 50% ratio of correctness because they just guess. They already have preconceived notions about KC Chiefs and Kansas and Cowboys because your active mind's got programs in it. So you may like or dislike a specific team because of programming. And that interferes with your ability to remote view a truth. So what they discovered in this particular type of remote viewing is that if you want to get an outcome on a binary event like a game, and you want to put money on it or gamble on it like they did with the stock market, and they did make money doing this method, is to substitute the Cowboys and the Chiefs with something else. So one with, say, an apple, and one with a box of crayons. So say the Kansas City Chiefs, it's red, so let's just say we'll make that the apple, and then the box of crayons would be the Cowboys, because there's arrows in those boxes. Okay, so you don't tell them what teams, or even what they're going to be, what the target is. You're telling them the target is a binary event at some time in the future. You might even give them the date. Give them the date and the time, nothing more. And then say, draw what you see. Now what they're looking for is an impression of either of the replaced items. They're looking for either an impression of the box of crayons or the apple. And someone might draw an apple. Okay, well, we know the Chiefs are going to win, not the Cowboys. And because of the association, you get what I'm saying? So here's the deal. When they did that, they found that it increased their chances by another 20% of getting it right. So now you only have a 30% chance of an incorrect. It's not a guess anymore. It literally increases the ability to see what the outcome is by not knowing what it's tied to because of preconceived notions. Pretty interesting. The programs that we run in our mind are that powerful that even in our subconscious mind, when your innocent child or your true you is trying to actually speak, the programming the cognition gets in the way sometimes. And in theta, you're using both minds at the same time. You're very imaginative at that point. You're using the right and left. You can think logically, but you can also use your imagination. Whereas in delta, you're asleep. The mind's not active. In beta and alpha modes, you're relaxed and active or really active. So there's different states of mind. Okay, we're going to do another target. We're not going to do the replace target yet. We'll do that one last. But we're going to do what's in the box. All right, what's in the box? So I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to draw what you think is inside this box. All right, are you ready to see what's in the box? Okay, so bring your results forward. Let's look at what Charles has drawn before we even reveal what's in here.
I kept getting kind of like the same image over and over, so
Okay.
I didn't draw anything else.
It's interesting. There's a rounded shape, very prevalent round shape. Obviously, did you start with the round shape?
No.
Okay. And it looks like a stack of something, or, you know, an object in a room, or in a space, or maybe a building shape or something. Okay, let's look at what's in the box. When I was a kid, I had this awesome coin collection. And it went missing for like 20 years. And I was at my dad's house just a few weeks ago, and he's like, hey, I found these. And I'm like, I've been looking for those for 20 years. And he gave me my coin collection back. So what we have here is a half crown. Queen Victoria. Hello, camera, can you see it? Okay. As you can see, we've got, oh, it's Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria. I'm so sorry. Elizabeth II, Dei Gratia, Regina. Okay, so you can see there she is with a, looks like an olive branch in her hair. It's not very clear, maybe. Yeah, she's an olive branch in her hair with Latin around the outside and her name. The outside of the coin is ridged. You can see it's got a good pattern like a quarter does, so it's not smooth like a nickel. And on the other side, we have a crest, a royal crest, with a crown. Sorry about the kid noises. There's a crown and a shield. On the shield, there are, wow, it's tiny, a harp. There's a harp. There are lions, lots of lions. A crown with, you know, like there's a grand cross on the crown. It says deaf, 1961, half crown, fid deaf. Okay, so we have a coin. Now, any of the elements on the coin could be in your drawing. We have Charles's drawing. Let's take a look at that again. Well, there's definitely a round shape of the edge of a coin. As for the box, the only thing that I could think that it would even be close to on that, it would be the shield, part of the shield, or he got the edge, the edges. You see the ridge? The ridged pattern? So Charles just got back into the room. I just want to show him the rounded shape. And the ridge, the edge of the half crown has lines, like it's rough. So there's the pattern, a flat object with a pattern and a rounded shape. But you know, you can see.
I almost drew something round here too, because once I fully got that out of my mind, I was about to draw something round, and then you said time. So
and then I said time. Okay,
but
so
also I was having a hard time concentrating because there's a lot of kids in the background making noises.
And that's the thing too, is like it really can affect your ability to receive information if there's distractions. And part of his job today was to help me keep the kids quiet because we have a bunch of kids here for the weekend. So thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so if you got anything similar to what's on this coin, either the coin, any kind of shape, any texture on it, you know, any image on it, then congratulations. So Charles wasn't as clear in this one as some of his others that seemed to be a bit more, but there's still there's the texture on a flat object, but instead of it being round, it's square or rectangular here. But he did get round elements and said that he was thinking of a round shape here. So, you know, and then there's that shield on the back that has kind of rectangular shapes in it. But so, you know, it's hit and miss. Remote viewing's not 100%. But it was definitely accurate enough in some of the experiments that they've done with people who've been doing it a while. They even brought people in that had never done anything psychic in their lives, and really interesting to see their results. So you can do it or you're not. And if you're distracted, you might have not as good results. Also, diet, it definitely does affect your ability to see or hear or use your extrasensory. So take care of yourself. Exercise, keep your blood circulation good. Blood's really important to that because, you know, the oxygenation of the blood. You're accessing both hemispheres of the brain when you use your psychic senses, because there's no barriers in your thinking. You just, but it's more the abstract, more the creative side of the brain. But they've had interesting scans done on the brain. You can look and read online interesting studies that they can actually do with CAT scans while people are using their psychic senses, and different areas of the brain are actually lighting up. Okay, so we're going to have another exercise. Charles, I'm going to give you another sketch paper. This time I've got a bag. This one I couldn't wait to do this one because of the shapes inside. And in this paper sack is your target. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to go for it. Do you have a sketch ready for me?
Yeah.
And these are quicker. I mean, there's no time limit if you're doing this at home by yourself, really trying to find something, but...
Yeah, they can always pause it.
Right, you can pause it if you need more time. Interesting.
I don't know. I think it's...
I would have to say...
I think it's easier for me to do this whenever I'm in another room.
In another room. Oh, and that's actually an interesting point to bring up. He probably has a harder time doing it with me present, because my presence affects the energy in the room, just me being here. So I could be sending signals to him with all kinds of distractions. But remote viewing has nothing to do with where you are. Okay, you could be in another country and still see what's in this object or in the folder. But if you're not in a relaxed state, if you're not in theta state, there's too much confusion in the mind. I will have to say that there's no resemblance to what's in this bag on this drawing. Except, I don't know, he said cloth, but there is no cloth.
It was just a question mark, because I couldn't...
Oh, okay, that's just a question mark?
It seemed to me like something that was folded up, but I couldn't really draw it because there's too many...
And I take that back. Then, yes, it's not cloth. He wrote cloth, but I'm glad I'm asking him questions, because he's the one that drew it. So what was going on in his mind? What was he seeing? Did you see anything else associated with the shape?
I mean, like I said, that's just like a basic drawing of, I don't know, I couldn't really draw it, but that's just...
And what is this shape?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of rounded.
Is it a twisting?
It felt like something that would not, it wasn't solid, you know what I mean?
It's not solid? Like, what do you mean? Like
that's why I said cloth, because if you pick up a piece of cloth, it kind of like bends in your hand, you know?
It bends in your hand? It literally, is that what you think is bends in your hand?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that I have more information from him, I'm like the interviewer.
See, I couldn't really draw it.
Okay, I'm going to change my mind. Okay, what's in the contents of this bag now that he's told me these other elements? That's not cloth. He just wondered after the fact when I called time. Is that what you wrote?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, no. Ignore that. That was after. Okay. This here, though, yes, there is shapes like this, and something twisting or moving, something he said that isn't solid, that can move in his hand. All right, let's look at what I've got here. So if you look at, this is it could be a row where there's a twisting apparatus in between the row, and he said this is a twisting, moving motion or feeling. which drawing out obviously didn't translate to hand very well, but when he described what he was trying to draw, a moving in the hand, what do you do with a Rubik's Cube?
Interesting.
And when you showed me the picture, you can see his hand in the video, he's doing a twisting motion, which is why I said, is it a twisting motion? Because he's doing this. So he saw the twisting motion, or he felt it rather. So he used, in this particular remote viewing, he relied on his kinetic senses, which would be a clairsentience or claircognizance, that knowing that there's a movement about it.
I did see the colors, but I couldn't draw that with obviously a blue pen.
Okay, so you saw multiple colors?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, you know, this looks like the first 2 rows of a Rubik's Cube. If you had one more, you would have had the 3 rows of a Rubik's Cube, maybe with 3 rows of colors.
Yeah, I was confused by the I was
Okay,
kind of confused
so
by what I was seeing.
I have better faith in you now.
It was really difficult to draw that.
Okay, well, I think you did a good job once you explained. And see, that's the thing is, those of you later posting your pictures, if there's more to it than what you can show in the picture, please use some words like he did, where he said this is he used with his hand, he said it's a twisting or a moving in his hand. That's what
But you guys didn't see it on.
When you had your hand, you were doing this, and I could see it on the screen. So you could see him talking with his hands, making a twisting motion. So he was trying to describe in pictures that feeling. If you get a feeling that doesn't necessarily have a drawing, it's okay. You can use words. You can, like he did, you can write extra words with question marks. Like, is it this? I even in the picture that I showed of the land that I drew several years before we obtained the land, I wrote a question mark. Is this mine? Well, it is mine now, and we live on this beautiful piece of land that I saw and drew on a piece of paper years before we had it, and it is definitely an accurate viewing. So this has some accuracy now that I've let him, you know, explain to, you know, the interview. There's an interview process of asking to explain what these shapes mean. And, you know, there's a process of communicating. As humans, we communicate in a lot of ways. It's not always verbal. Not everybody is good with words. Some people are good with listening. Some people are better with feeling or touching. Some people are kinesthetic learners and learn by doing. So, you know, you take your learning and your different senses that you can tap into, and it'll come out in your drawings. Your sketches, I mean, drawing may not be your forte, so you may feel awkward with the written part, but if you could describe colors or senses or smells, you can write them down in words so that they're at least on the page, or, you know, have a description of things that you felt during the experience. Okay, so we have one last test here for this session, and it is going to be a future event. Okay, we're ready to do this next one, the future event. Do you remember earlier when I talked about the football games? I talked about the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, we're going to have 2 targets to cause a little bit. We're up in the game here. We're going to up the stakes. We're going to have an event, and you will find the outcome of the event with remote viewing. So in these bags, I have 2 very different objects, and they will represent the binary aspects of the event. And the event, should I tell you now? No, I'm not going to tell you now because then it'll be too obvious. Okay, so if it's like, it's not a team that's playing, but there's a binary event that's going to happen in 5 minutes. Actually, it's not even, let's just say 3 minutes. 3 minutes. There will be a binary event that will take place that will tell you which one of the outcomes of this is correct, the winner. And let's just say we put money on it. Let's just say we get, I mean, not for real, but like pretend like, say, I don't endorse gambling. We're just doing this for fun. Okay. So I get $100 on, say, this drawing being, or this particular thing being the outcome of the event. So each one of these represents an element or binary opposing factor that will determine who wins. So this thing that's going to be a winning gamble. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes. I hope that explained it well. Does that make sense?
I'm kind of confused.
Okay.
Is there like going to be an interaction between them?
Okay. Let's just say, like earlier, I talked about the football game. In the test, the way they made it work was they didn't tell them that it was a football game. They didn't tell them that it was football teams. They just said, I have 2 objects, and I want you to tell me which is the winning of the event, which is the outcome of the event, which one will the outcome weigh to. Does that make sense? Okay, one of these.
Which one is greater?
Which one is greater? Which impression do you receive? So you're going to have to look at all these targets, but see the right target of the outcome in a few minutes. So which contents of the bag?
Basically, you have to see which one wins.
Exactly. Now, if you draw the contents of the bag in this and still you get it right, but it's not the one that wins, then you're not successful in your feedback loop because you didn't win the bet or you didn't win the outcome, even though you saw the other element. Okay, we want you to get the winning element or the heavily weighing element at the end, the outcome of the event that's happening in 3 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to just draw what comes to mind, and then we will do the event. And the event will determine which bag wins. Are you ready for the event? Okay. The event is the flip of a coin to determine which bag wins. And I've already attached a specific side, so I already knew who the winner would be to see if any of you else could get, or, I already knew which is attached to which. Okay, so the contents of this bag is attached to the tails outcome, and the contents of this bag is attached to the heads outcome. So this is heads, and this is tails. So first, before we flip the coin, let's see what Charles has drawn. He's like nervous.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
I just kind of did auto writing and just closed my eyes.
Look at
and
this.
Let the pen
Okay, because I know what's in the bags. This is amazing. Only because I know what's in the bags. This is really good, actually. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'll show you why here in a second. All right. Now we're going to flip the coin to see if it actually wins. Here we go. Okay, if I can get my coin flipping mojo on. Tails. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but I'll show you the accuracy of the losing team. Okay, so if we were betting, we wouldn't have won money, but he still saw one of the elements.
I didn't have time to draw the other one. I was just trying to see what was in both bags.
See if there's anything that could kind of be. Yeah, they're so different that definitely. I wanted to make sure they were so different. There's no way there could be crossover drawings. This was in heads, and you can see it's a double-headed dragon with spikes all over it. And what did you draw but a dragon's head?
Well, kind of. I
saw
the
spiky,
spikes,
but you see a spiky dragon head shape. It's obvious. So that's really good. I'm impressed, but we didn't win. Okay, now that's your feedback loop. The feedback loop is good job. You did see part of the element of the game, but the winning team was not picked. So if we would have put money on heads, which I chose heads on this because it has two heads, and I chose tails on this because you kick a ball and you can kick your tail. But anyway, this was the winning object. So if you drew anything with circles, a bunch of circles, or like just an orb of some kind, or there's these little beads inside. See that? Little balls and circles everywhere. Flower of life, maybe? Flower of life? Okay, so the winning team was tails, associated with tails. The round orbish thing. So if you drew anything similar to this, congratulations. You just won $100. Not for real, but in the imaginary world of winning. And for those of you who drew elements of heads, still, it's congratulations, the fact that you even saw what was in one of the bags, which is really great, but you didn't pick the winning event. So as far as your future telling event,
if I would have had more time,
possibly,
because I was trying to see what was in both bags. Really, I think is my problem.
But the instructions were to find the target that was the winner.
Well, okay. I didn't have time to do that.
But then there's also the chance. I mean, it's all about chance.
Because I'm just trying to figure out which is the best way for me to go about these kind of stuff. So I'm experimenting with different things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, which is generic remote viewing, which is what we're doing here. Lots of fun experiments. But this one was to try and determine the outcome of a future event by seeing targets. he saw the targets that he didn't even know what was in these bags. So that's pretty impressive. He saw this. But according to the future event and the chance, things were not in his favor. But I saw his lunar return this month, so I can see why. If I were looking at his astrology and if he asked about a lottery ticket, I'd say don't buy one this month, because he had a square to his 5th house, to his 8th, which actually rules gambling, and with a square, that's a lose. So his astrology, and this is another metaphysical topic entirely, but your astrology, your personal astrology, also probably has an effect on your ability to see at specific times. I've known with a lot of psychic work, there are certain transits where your abilities are definitely more keen than others. So in any of these instances, I'm still impressed with the outcome of his ability to see. There was this game that we used to play when we used to go down and film with Zombie Go Boom, and Chuck was the host of the show, and Charles is the psychic, and they would talk about the co-host. Anyway, we played this game called Guess the Color. What color am I thinking of? And we'd get in different rooms, and they would write a color down and guess the color. And I was really impressed between Charles and Chuck. They were getting probably an 80% correction. Like, they were correct 8 out of 10 times. So there's this thing that it's called twinning. And there are specific people that you can actually link up with psychically. And I have like a notification I was getting out of the way. There are people that you can link up psychically and actually telepathically send information back and forth to. My husband and I have that kind of relationship. And even in your astrology, for example, you can see if you have a heavy Pisces in your relationship, that psychic connection is easy. There's also astrological alignments in natal charts that show you where your psychic abilities are the strongest. So it might help you in understanding the types of remote viewing that you're going to be best at. I can't wait to see more of your pictures, and some of your comments I saw about what you're seeing are also accurate to the contents. So congratulations for several of you realizing that you absolutely can do this and you can remote view. All right, we have another binary event. Our last binary event was flipping a coin. So the type of remote viewing that seeks to try and determine the outcome of a future event. So I have a different event, which will be a happening. And I didn't want to say what the event was. If I told you I was flipping a coin, you might be distracted by the thought that I'm flipping a coin. And then, of course, in the last video, we illustrated that in binary future predictions or remote viewing, you're trying to come up with the outcome of an event. Does this win or does this win? Which has the outcome? Which one weighs in at the end as being the strong element? Okay, so we're going to have an event in 3 minutes. And so you're going to remote view the contents of the bag associated with the winning side. And go. Okay, before we look at the contents of the associated binary event outcome, we have to have the event. But before we have the event, I want to see what Charles drew. So what you got there?
Just kind of did the same thing I did last time and let the pen do the work and just close my eyes.
And he has no idea what I've chosen for the event. I see some dots and kind of a rectangular form with swirly forms inside. Or maybe 2 prominent circles, a couple of circles maybe, thread of some type, really, flowing shape. And of course, it helps to sometimes look at it from different angles. Okay. It could even be the lay of a land or something. Okay, so what we've got here is his prediction. Now we have to have the event. And the event is, I have randomly chosen 2 tarot cards from a deck that I have. And here they are. You can't see them, but I'm going to keep mixing them up. I don't know which is which right now because I haven't like looked, but I'm going to mix them behind my back too and kind of just go back and forth, flip them around. I know there's only two, but I didn't look to see exactly which was which. Okay. So, I guess, hey, do you want to draw one? You want to pick one?
You need to pick one?
Yeah, you pick one. Just draw one of these cards. Which one? Okay. This is the winning event. Whoa. Look at that.
Smokes.
Look at that, guys.
Whoa.
Look at that.
Whoa!
He drew the roulette board and those chips.
Wow.
And they're spinning. Did you explain what you were feeling when you drew this?
I mean, I just like felt something definitely moving, and I saw the circles. It was all this is all one line. So I was trying to draw what I was seeing all with one line.
Nice.
So.
Well, there you go. I would say this is
cool.
This is a successful win, I think. What do you think? It's a pretty good match. I'll show you what the other card is. The other card is scissors cutting up a dress. But you see the thread? There's still kind of the thread element.
Kind of thread.
So, I mean, it's possible you were seeing elements from both.
Of both.
But if you look at the two, I really think you drew more the actual chips.
Yeah,
see those?
there's definitely 3 circles.
Three circles, yeah.
And then this shape, I couldn't tell
Could
what
be
it
the big
was, but I knew
circle.
it was rounded of some kind.
Okay, so there's the big, there's the roulette board, the big rounded shape at the bottom, roulette board, and the 3 chips.
And I did see something
and
else
an empty
here
space
too, but I don't know. I didn't trust myself enough to draw it.
And mine had blank spots, and there will be blank spots sometimes. But look, the blank spot's in the right place. Everything here is placed correctly to this
awesome.
card. So I would say it's a win.
I found my way.
You found your way? Okay. All right. And see, it's trial and error. You learn. You'll get to where, and I have one more, one more exercise. It's a slightly different one. Now, the last 2 that we did, this one was a binary future event outcome. So, I mean, if he would have put a bet on that, a little bit of increase, but just knowing the peace of mind. So the feedback loop is, I think, definitely he got that one. So if you had anything similar to the winning card here, congratulations. And even if you got elements of the losing card, like if you drew a dress or a pair of gloves or a purse or even a pair of scissors or, in this shape, any of these shapes. I mean, you could kind of see in his drawing the thread, maybe.
You see, in my mind...
But the objects are all spaced out like this card for sure.
That time what I did was I took both bags without even really focusing on what was inside of them, and I sort of like mixed them together and put them in the same space in my mind. And then I picked out, I guess, the more prominent shapes. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
The heavier weighing shapes.
Yeah,
the ones that pop
basically.
forward more.
Exactly.
Got it. Because it was the winning element.
Exactly.
Cool.
I made both bags, battled it out for the same space, and that's the one that popped out.
Perfect.
Anyway, that's just what I
Okay,
did.
good job. Now I have one more. Actually, we have 2 more exercises. One more bag exercise, but it's not a binary event, and it's not a just go to the bag, because the first few exercises we did were just what's in the folder, what's in the bag, here's your target. The last 2 we did have a lot to do with future events, and he got a 50-50 on the last, so he got one right and he got one partially right but didn't win. So I have this other object now in the bag this time, but it's not a binary event, it's a layered event. It's a layered place, it's a layered thing. Okay, so let me explain myself. There was an experiment they did. I told you earlier about the man who viewed into a space and saw not only the lay of the land and the buildings that were there currently, but had been there 70 years prior. There was a water tower that he drew that wasn't present at the time of the remote viewing, but he saw in space and time both levels of objects in that space. So in this particular target, there's an inner and an outer layer. There was a target that the CIA had this one man do, where they said, get a location of something that's going on, and he found a location, and he drew the outside of a building. And they said, okay, now we want to know what's going on inside the building. What's going on inside the building? and he drew that there was a big sphere of metal being welded together, and it was a top secret project. Nobody knew anything about it. And he got not only the building of where it was being constructed, but what was going on inside the building too. And I think they were so intimidated by the information that he could do that I think the CIA actually asked him to come work for him, and he died pretty young. He was 56 when he died. All these other people that were involved in these funded programs, they didn't work for the CIA. They worked independently from their own companies. And, you know, coincidence, I don't know, but it's definitely when you have the accuracy rate that some people can get with remote viewing, it can be scary. Now, this can be great. If you have a missing child, you know, or you're trying to find someone who's missing, you can find that person. Lose your keys, whatever, find things that are lost. Okay, so this particular target is a layer within a layer, similar to where's a location of an activity that might be harming our country, blah, blah, blah. There's the building, and then there's thing going on inside the building. Okay, so this obviously is not a building fitting inside this bag, but there's something in the bag that in and of itself has activity. And then on the inside, there's something. So there's 2 layers of information that I want you to get. I'm going to give you 3 minutes again. So you can do it in layers or just draw whatever comes to your mind on the page, whatever impressions you have. There's no wrong way to do it. But we're trying to find first what's in the bag and then what's inside. And I have a specific thing placed for it. So, all right, go. Okay. Bag within a bag. First, let's see what Charles has drawn.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. This shape, describe this to me. What are you seeing here? What are you feeling? What's going on?
I don't know. It seemed like a box or something of some kind. Obviously, you said something inside of something, so my mind was focusing on some kind of box or something like that. But
okay, but specifically this shape, this kind of shape.
Like a cube of some kind.
Specifically a cube.
A cube or rectangle, something with 90-degree angles on it.
Okay, okay. And then this looks like there's a hinge in it with, what is this? What?
Well, that I honestly, I didn't know what I was looking at, and so I just closed my eyes and let the pen go, and I thought in my mind I was drawing one thing, but when I opened my eyes it looked completely different than what I was thinking that I was drawing. So,
okay.
So I have no idea.
I'm smiling because I know what's inside, and I'm telling you that you have another hit.
Oh, really?
But you did it backwards, which is fine. It's fine. You got the inside first, and then you got the outside. Oh, okay. So I'll show you what's inside, and then how it relates to his drawings. Okay, I have in here a 1917 copy of Morals and Dogma. Check that out. It's kind of dusty. Anyway, it's a book. And the second shape that he drew looks like a book laying down getting opened. You see this, the spine area and the cover is being opened. So if I were to lay the book like that,
I can kind of see it.
And open the book.
See, interesting, because I wanted to say, part of me was thinking book.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I saw this shape here, which is what I was trying to draw with the box area.
Ah, but that's what's inside. That's what's inside. Okay, he got the book, but the page I had marked inside is the important thing. I had it marked with my business card, but was a cube.
Oh!
And he drew the cube.
Wow.
So, specifically, and he used the word cube, and I did not prompt him into that word. He drew the cube, and he drew the book. And no, ladies and gentlemen, he did not know what I did with any of these bags.
Yeah, I leave
he
the
left
room
the room.
when she sets this up.
So good job. I'm impressed. I mean, of course, you know. But so you see how easy it is? It's so easy. Anyone can do this.
Even a caveman can do it.
Yeah, you just have to, you know, like really just be open to trust yourself, trust your inner child. Give yourself permission to.
Yeah, the hardest part is just trusting, just letting the pen do it, and just like, even though I saw something that I didn't think made sense, I just drew it.
It's so much about trust. You know, if you have any doubts, sometimes you can get the wrong things or whatever. Okay, so we have one more final experiment, and this time I get to draw. And Charles is going to be the control. We have a pretty big property, and you what?
If I leave
your phone here, and you
how about I go and I draw what I see,
or afterwards we can yeah, because he wants to take a picture. I'll lose internet connection if he leaves the room.
I can take a picture with the tablet.
There you go. Good idea. Okay, he's going to take a picture with the tablet. Do you know how to do that on that device? Is there enough power on it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, this time I'm going to be drawing, and I'll be remote viewing. We have a large property out here and a lot of different things. I mean, we have everything from buildings to fire pits to trees to machinery.
Well, don't tell them everything we have.
Okay.
They'll be focusing on things.
Right, but let's just a normal like household.
It's a homestead.
Homestead. Okay, so there's a lot of things that he could go look at. So what we're going to do in this next experiment, and everyone else is going to be remote viewing through Charles. So this particular method is when your target is a person. What are they thinking? Where are they? What surroundings are they in? Like, say you want to find somebody that's missing, and what are they seeing? Can you get a view of what they're looking at so that you can get landmarks, or can you find them? Or, you know, what if I was outside working on the farm and I didn't come in for a while, I didn't have my phone on me, and Charles needed to use his intuition or his remote viewing abilities to be able to find where his hurt wife was, you know? So you could see how it could come in handy. Or you're hunting and you want to find the animal, you know, you can see maybe through the eyes of the deer and see what the deer might be standing next to and go to that area. But anyway, so the similar experiment we're going to do is he's going to pick a location on the property, and I'm going to give him like a minute to get out to it. So wait a minute. I'll tell you when go is. And within a minute or so, he can walk just about anywhere on the property. And then he's going to stand in front of a landmark or an item, something we have on the property, and he's going to focus all of his intention on that to send it out. And then we're going to sketch for a few minutes, and as soon as he feels like he's sent that signal out really good, he'll take a picture of it and come back inside and show us what he's got a picture of. And of course, first I'll show you the sketches that I have, and let's see how it goes. So, okay, and go. So he's going to go out and focus on a piece of something on the property. And I mean, we have a lot of junk out here, so he could literally be doing anything out there. And then I'm going to get my sketch paper. And everybody just kind of, you know, trust, do your thing. What if I'm seeing that? All right.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to look at the photos on this device because
It didn't pop up right after you took the picture?
well, it's an Amazon device.
He's like, Dad, I want the tablet. Okay, well, before he even shows the picture.
I mean, I have the picture. It's so small you can't even see it.
Can you enlarge it enough for me to get it on the screen?
That's what I'm trying to do. Every time I
Oh, don't show me! Don't show me yet.
Every time I click on it, it shows me this screen. It says you have to have an Amazon Photos account.
Oh no!
That's ridiculous. You can't even look at the photos. Anyway.
But you can get the picture of it.
You can see.
Okay. Well, this is what I got.
It's small.
And so this whole time, I get these patterned shapes, and then I realize my eyes are closed, and I'm looking at this LED light, and that looks like the LED light with my eyes closed. So I see more floral shapes, planty shapes, but then I saw this little mower thing in the corner. But when I took the lights out of my eyes, I saw
that looks.
I saw a crate with junk all around it or something. Some kind of a box item or a square.
That seems more accurate than...
Well, because when I first was looking, literally I'm like, got my eyes closed and I'm looking, I'm like, I keep seeing flower patterns everywhere, and I realized literally behind my eyes, because these lights are so bright on me, and they're round with like, what, 12 LEDs in them.
Well, I was actually going to take a picture of a flower, but then this...
And then you changed your mind?
I changed my mind because an event happened.
Okay.
And changed the circumstances.
So the first time I was out, I was thinking flowers, but then I thought, well, maybe it's that. So then I changed my mind and I flipped the page over and I drew this, which is like some kind of a cube or boxed or crate item, some kind of square cubed item. And there's dark stuff all around it. I don't know if it's like junk around it or tall grass around it or what, but it's an item that's like heavy and big and square of some cubic of some.
Well, do you want to see what it is?
Yeah. So, but it started out with flower impressions, which I thought might be the lights, and then closed my eyes with the shielding the light, and then I got that shape, more of a mass.
Okay, so as I was standing out there, I was going to get a picture of a flower and then a tree, and then a vehicle came up the driveway that I didn't recognize, so my focus went to the vehicle. Look
at the little wheels on... Look, there's little wheels.
Well...
I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view.
Look at the vehicle.
It's a Jeep! It's a box Jeep!
I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's a gold...
Oh, and it's a busted screen.
Really boxy Jeep.
Let's see if I can get it any bigger.
No.
Okay, hang on. Can you... Yeah, okay, there's a gold boxy Jeep. Do you see it? It's in the center. It's really blurry, but there's a gold Jeep there.
Since they were taking my focus...
backed into... Okay, so this is interesting. Not only did I first get flower impressions, I drew like leafy, branchy things. He said he almost did a tree. I changed my mind twice. Mostly just the flowers. I saw flowers. Thought he's going to take a picture of a flower. But then, wait, something caught my eye. In the corner of my eye, I saw the mower, but then I'm like, no, wrong altogether. Get rid of the lights, covered my eyes, and drew a boxy, cratey thing. It's even got these little wheel shapes, like a Jeep would, and a circular, which it turned around. The Jeep turned around in our driveway, so it had to back in, and so I drew it a circular motion around it. There's something going on around it, I said. Either jump around it or...
He made like a 5-point turn.
He made a 5-point turn, so I drew a boxy shape with a turning motion, and there was a Jeep. And so the processes of his thoughts, I was literally connected, I guess, to First the flower, then wait, hold on, something caught my attention. Mechanical, a little mower, but then that's what I saw, solid. So I would say that's a win. I would say that's pretty good on location, pretty solid. Yeah. So remote viewing, folks, that was not premeditated in any way. So even that Jeep.
Yeah, I couldn't have predicted that Jeep was going to drive down the road.
Right.
So I figured it wasn't something that's always on the property, so it'd make it a little bit more difficult.
And it did, because I was like, wait, I was getting a clear flower image, and then suddenly it changed, a distraction, and then suddenly it became the boxed wheel on. Yeah, so I'm excited. I think that was a really good experiment.
That was pretty cool.
Cool. I hope you really enjoyed the presentation, the information. There's a lot more information online about remote viewing, but these exercises are really what can bring in your belief and your own abilities to actually do this kind of thing. So, yeah, try it, experiment it, play some games with your kids, play games with your friends, to try these experiments out. Just make them up and be creative. And then when it really counts, when you really actually have to use these abilities to know things about your current life, to know things about your future life, to want to know what a better decision is when you're weighing the outcomes, I'd say that remote viewing, or just tapping into your ESP, your extrasensory perception, your extrasensory abilities, will help. They're pretty accurate, even if they're foggy and strange. Just try it a few times. Even what am I going to be doing next week, or what's going to be happening here? The results start to come in, and the real prize in all of this is that you trust your intuition. You trust the child, the inner child, the innocent truth that is. Those subtle promptings that separate you from the people who go through life like zombies, that are told everything what to do. These abilities can really help give you clarity and focus in life, especially when you're trying to make decisions. Anyway, I'm G Desiree Fultz. Thank you for attending this workshop, and for everybody who participated. And thank you for my husband for being my guinea pig, for being a good test subject. This is actually the first time we've played these games, really, other than the color games we've played. So we should do that more often. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, well, if you have any more questions, feel free to type them in the group, ask them, send me a message. If you want any more information, or if you have any suggestions about future workshops, let me know. Signing off.